video is the third one coming out of lesson 2.2, trig ratios of any angle. We're asked to solve for angles, and in this case, angles between 0 and 360 in the first question, where cos of theta is negative root 3 over 2. Now this root 3 over 2 number might look familiar to you, and if it does, you probably have a head start on the question, but even if it doesn't, I want you to think in these solved questions, reference angle, cast rule. Reference angle, cast rule. So for reference angle, what I'm going to do is do inverse cos of root 3 over 2. And this is why that number might have looked familiar to you, because this is actually just a 30-degree angle. Notice I intentionally ignored the negative. Don't put the negative when you're finding the reference angle. You'll save yourself a lot of grief. Now's where I worry about the negative, because now I say, okay, well, the cast rule says, in what quadrants is cosine actually negative? If I think about what cosine and what the cast rule means and so on, it means that I'm looking for an angle in quadrant 2 and in quadrant 3. I want a 30-degree angle in quadrant 2 and a 30-degree angle in quadrant 3. So what does the 30-degree angle in quadrant 2 look like? About that. And so 180 minus 30 is the answer, which is 150 degrees. What does a 30-degree angle in quadrant 3 look like? Well, something about like that. If I do 180 plus 30, I'll get the other answer, which is 210. And if you try doing cosine of 150 degrees or cosine of 210 degrees, you would get, and on the calculator, you'd get the decimal version of this, but you'd get negative root 3 over 2. You'd get negative 0.866. But because this angle is one of our special triangle angles, you might have skipped this calculator step. You might have known that we're talking about a 30-degree angle and gotten there another way, but this reference angle cast rule way will allow you to do ones even when the number is gross. So for example here, I don't know anybody that knows where does tan theta equal negative 0.618. That is not a special triangle angle, it's just some random number I picked off the top of my head. Again, we're asked to solve it for angles between 0 and 360. This time we're given some rounding instructions because, as we'll discover, it's not a nice number. But I still start the same way, reference angle, and then I'll move on to cast rule. But reference angle just says, okay, ignore that minus sign. What angle would give you a tan ratio of 0.618? So if you do inverse tan 0.618 on your calculator, you get about a 31.7 degree angle. Again, lots of decimals, but we're rounding to nearest tenth. Then I say, okay, now the cast rule tells me that tan is negative in 2 quadrants. It's negative in quadrant 2 and in quadrant 4. So if I draw a 31.7 degree angle in quadrant 2, I'm saying what's 180 minus 31.7, and I get one of my answers. Again, rounded to the nearest tenth, 148.3 or so degrees. In quadrant 4, I put a 31.7 degree angle in quadrant 4. Looks like that. If I wanted to know what angle puts me there, 360 minus 31.7, 328.3. Now, if you tried doing tangent of either of these two angles, you should get, little rounding error aside, you should get negative 0.618. So you can confirm these answers just by checking them. But main thing I want you to remember is start these solved questions by finding the reference angle. Ignore any negatives that you have when you do the inverse tan, sine, or cos. Find the reference angle, then use the cast rule to decide, am I talking about positive or negative answers? What quadrant am I in? And you can take that skill onto Math 30 and you'll have a big head start.